Our next presentation will be from Charles Leahy, who will present about the acoustic and legal challenges associated with pickleball.
Thank you. I'm going to start off here doing something a little bit unusual, and I hope you'll be patient with me. That was 1 minute out of our lives. And imagine that you were having a picnic on your patio, and 30, 40, 50, 100 feet, 150 feet away from your patio, you have a pickleball court. It's actually what's happening around the country, and I'm talking U.S. and Canada. There'll be one tennis court in the backyard of your subdivision. One tennis court can be converted into 4 pickleball courts. So instead of having 4 people playing tennis, you'll have 16 people playing pickleball, and there will be 4 of those balls in action. The noise comes from the interaction between the paddle and the ball. It's a hard paddle. This one is a wood paddle, which is the least expensive. The technology has changed. They're now made out of carbon fiber and so forth, but they're still hard. And the ball is hard. It's a hard plastic ball, a wiffle ball. So when you hit the two things together, you're going to get that noise. It's called an impulsive noise in the acoustic world. It only lasts 1 to 2 milliseconds for the rise and fall, and then there's some reverberation after that. But it turns out that impulsive noises are particularly annoying to us. So what's happening in the real world is that when cities are designing pickleball courts, or if they've already built a pickleball court and they're getting a lot of complaints, they call in the acoustical engineers to do an assessment, make recommendations. So what I've done here is collected reports, 79 of the reports so far, and analyzed what kind of findings and advice are the acoustical engineers giving to the decision makers. The decision makers can be city council, HOA boards, or when things go wrong, the judge and jury in the courthouse. So my second report then that I'll be doing is improving the persuasiveness of those reports. So after we've looked at what they're doing, we're going to give some advice on how to do it better. And you think, wow, why would a guy get interested in something like this? Well, just by chance, my wife and I have a motorhome. We traveled the country in it, and we landed in Palm Springs, California, in an RV resort. It's a wonderful place to be. It's got golf, tennis, pickleball, and so forth. I was on the board of directors, and we got the advice from one of these consultants that we needed to build a 10-foot tall, noise-absorbing wall around the pickleball courts. And decisions like that have to go to the board of directors. I was on the board of directors. And it seems we got the decision wrong in that we did not follow the advice, and now we've ended up 4 years later with a lawsuit, which is a terrible, terrible thing for a community or anyone else to be involved in. So my goal is, with the discussions I'll be doing, is how can the consultants communicate better? There's a communication gap. How can we do better to avoid bad outcomes? This is a map created by, there's 2 Facebook groups. I was never into Facebook until I got involved in this. It turns out Facebook is a wonderful way to collect information around the country. And for you in the press, you might be interested to know there's actually been reporters that have come to the Facebook group and said, hey, where can we find people to interview about this problem? So this map here shows about 260 spots around Canada and the U.S. where these problems have been reported. Since we're in Canada, I wanted to give you some of the headlines. What's all the racket? Residents oppose the courts in Peterborough, Ontario, which is down near Toronto. I don't know all the details, but that one's going on right now, big controversy. The neighbors don't want it, and the players want it. Then, in the Washington Post in July, we had the story about the Canadian couple that went on a hunger strike in protest of pickleball. Inspired by Gandhi, this couple goes on a hunger strike over pickleball noise. Rajneesh and his wife, he's an English professor at a university out near British Columbia. They say the noises from the nearby pickleball courts have caused a variety of medical issues. And then one of the other more aggressive news media, they called it a constant assault. Chilliwack resident would choose death over pickleball noise. Well, there was no death. There's a happy ending. I'll come to that in a minute. But then in North Saanich, which is also in British Columbia, and this is like 2 weeks ago, the pickleballers raise a racket after the city votes to shutter the courts because of the noise problem. Then about 2 years ago in the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, which is near Niagara Falls, the local pickleball club was fined $1,000 for violating the local noise bylaw, and the court shut the pickleball courts for 2 years. What happened almost immediately was the city council changed the ordinance. They erased the ordinance because they didn't like the judge interfering in their decision-making, so now they've taken the ordinance away, and it's anticipated that once the 2-year injunction runs out, the pickleball courts will be reopened because that's what the community wants. And then the last one I have, the pickleball noise debate has landed here in Ottawa. The city of Ottawa says it's working on the local pickleball location standards. So what happened there was the courts were being used by a pickleball club, and the city canceled their lease. So this is the little victory celebration out there when the hunger strike was successful. Here's the sign that's been posted in North Saanich now, and here's the reaction at City Hall at the city meeting. The pickleball players get to come in and give a protest. They want the courts to be reopened. And as you'll see from the picture, one of the things about pickleball is it's wonderfully accessible for people of a certain age. And it's a smaller court, you don't have to run as far, and it's wonderfully social. It's just a wonderful thing. The growth has been phenomenal because of the joy and the exercise that it brings to people. So it's a very worthy activity, but it has this bad noise signature. So how can the consultants communicate better? I say, instead of using all your decibel jargon and so forth, try to tell the story in a way that's more accessible to the decision maker. I like a dog kennel analogy. The decibel meter will measure loudness. Well, loudness is how upset is the dog, how loud is the dog barking, and that's how hard did I swing the paddle and hit the ball. The variation in the noise, with dogs we get the growl, the bark, the whine, and the yap. It turns out that each paddle and ball combination has its own noise signature, different tone, a different impulsiveness, a different reverberation, and so forth. Then we need to look at the number of individual noises. How many dogs are in the kennel, and how often do they bark? And in the pickleball world, that would be how many courts are there, and how many courts are active. Did you know that the game goes so fast, it takes just over a second for the ball to get over there and a second to come back. So with all the breaks and delays and everything else, we end up with about 15 pops per minute for each court. That's 900 per hour. So if you have 4 courts, that's 3,600 noises in 1 hour, and that's why what you heard there on the recording. There's also, with the dogs, there's the question of the predictability. Well, it's random. It comes and goes. We got a dog down the street now that'll bark a few times a day for 3 or 4 minutes, but it comes and goes. It's not a steady thing. But with the pickleball, the popularity of it, the courts are busy, 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 and then when this group ends, there's another group waiting, and they rush in to grab the courts before another group rushes in. So it's a continuous thing. It can go on easily 4 hours every morning. Then there's a little break. And in the evening, the youngsters come out to play, and they can play even more aggressively. So with regard to the total exposure then, the dog kennel, it's random, it's unpredictable. But with the pickleball courts, it's pretty common for them to be running 8, 10, 12 hours a day, dawn to dusk. So this is why we're having all the news stories. I'm proposing a number of suggestions to the acoustical engineers, but this is just one way to make the story more understandable to the decision makers. Here's a chart that shows if you have 4 courts, for example, 4 courts, and they're 900 pops per court, then you get 3,600 per hour. And if you show the city council that over a period of 4 hours, then you're going to have 14,000 of these notes, and you play them that recording, it helps to humanize the problem. And I think that when I look at the press stories that have been written, there's dozens and dozens of them, the press does a good job with this issue because you humanize it. You tell both sides of the story, the joy that the players are getting and the burden on the neighbors. You talk about, the people will tell you how it's upsetting their sleep, they can't talk on the phone, causing marital stress, and so forth and so forth. So it's a real problem in that there's benefits and then there's these burdens. When we step away from the dog analogy now, maybe we're better able to understand it. You got the loudness, which is the decibels, and this pickleball impact is about 20 decibels louder than a tennis racket. A tennis racket's a soft, you got the strings and you got a soft ball, 2 soft objects hitting each other, very different from 2 hard objects. You got the frequency. This is about 1,200 hertz, which they tell me is the musical instrument C6. That happens to be the same frequency as the backup warning they put on the garbage trucks so that you'll know it's coming and you won't get run over. It's a get your attention. It's right in the middle of where we hear the best. Then there's the impulsiveness. The noise rises and falls in 2 milliseconds. That's like a thunder or a tree branch breaking over your head, and you know you need to run away or you're going to get hurt. It's built into our hereditary system, this fight or flight thing. It affects our endocrine system very quickly. And then finally, this rate of repetition, the 15 pops a minute, 900 an hour, because the medical people tell us that chronic, persistent, repetitive exposure to noise, even at low levels, can be harmful to people. So this is the bad outcome here. This is in Falmouth, Massachusetts. They padlocked the courts because there's a court injunction. So really my goal here is to talk to the acoustical engineers. I've got a lot more I could go through, but it gets too scary technical. And to talk to the engineers and suggest to them and encourage them to speak in a more persuasive manner to the decision makers so that we can avoid some of the bad outcomes. And what a lot of cities are doing now is they're establishing on their own. They've been caught up in this and they can't get themselves out of it. You saw the protest in East Saanich where the players come out, no, you can't close the courts. More and more cities now are realizing they need to just set a strict setback. We're not going to even try to have a pickleball court unless it's 250 feet, 350 feet away from the nearest house. And I think that's a great thing for the cities to do, and we need to get the engineering community to buy in somewhat to that idea. As engineers, we love to solve problems. I'm an engineer, and I'm an attorney, and as engineers, we love to solve problems, but you can't solve every problem. And you have to pull back your expectations to a safe distance so that we can keep these things out of court. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
Thank you. I was curious, you said at the beginning that you'd looked over 79 different consultation reports.
Yes.
And I was curious, were the majority or what proportion of those were before courts were established versus after the courts were established? So when did people go to get these consultations about pickleball noise?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. It's a pretty, I'd say a pretty even mix on that issue. Uh, and I find it especially disappointing, as happened in our resort, that you go to get the result. That's called, they predict what's going to happen. And they gave us the prediction, and we didn't understand it, we didn't honor it. There was a breakdown there. So that's one of the things I'm interested in. Then the after the fact studies tend to be more about what can we do to fix this. And the fixes are always expensive. The standard recommendation out there is that 10-foot tall wall to build a wall around the pickleball courts. Well, the community does not want to pay for it, and the pickleball players don't want it. And I think there's probably some good reasons that they don't want it, like maybe you won't be able to enjoy the outdoors as much, and so forth. But I think it's also a sense that you don't want to be boxed in like you're in jail because you've done something bad. Making noise is bad, so you need to go to jail. No, we need to get away from that, and the way to do it very simply is Mother Nature is a wonderful thing. We need noise, and the spiders need noise, and the music is wonderful. We get a lot of benefit out of sound, but it can go wrong. And the noise part of acoustics, Mother Nature takes care of it with distance. If you can have enough distance, then the noise dissipates and won't cause the harm and the unhappiness that it does. Thank you.
All right, we have a few questions from our online viewers. One is, did the use of different brands of paddles or types, like wooden or not, and or balls make a difference in the sound?
It definitely does, and in fact, there's quite an initiative on now to try to make paddles that are softer. There's a new paddle out called the Owl paddle. It's kind of covered with felt, and it makes it softer, and it's not as aggressive a noise. It changes the decibels some, but it also lowers the frequency some. So that's beneficial. There are different brands of balls that are quieter too. The wiffle balls are vary in hardness, and now they've got out, this is a new ball on the market. It's more like a foam exercise ball that's quiet. But here's the problem. The players all want to be professionals, and they want to improve their performance, and so everyone aspires to use the real equipment and not the quieter equipment. You know, as engineers, we can solve lots of problems. You got the bicycle helmets, you got earplugs, you got condoms, you got everything that engineers can invent. But how do you get society to adopt those things when it's inconvenient? Masks, vaccines, on and on. Technology can only get us so far. We have to recognize that there are limitations in terms of adoption with the public.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of earplugs, should players consider wearing earplugs for hearing protection? Is the sound, is that a thing?
Well, a lot of people question that. I don't think so. I don't think our acoustical engineers are better able to answer the question. There's not enough energy in it. There's noise can be harmful, and it can be unwanted. It can be annoying. And that annoyance, as an attorney, it goes back to the old common law in England, that nuisance law, that you can be deprived of the reasonable use of your property by some noxious noise or vibration, smell that's coming onto your property from an adjoining landowner. So, these are real concerns. And if we don't fix the noise problem in the planning stage, or by building a wall, or using the quieter equipment, if we don't do those things, then we end up in the nuisance court. That's not a good place for anybody, not the engineers, not the neighbors, not the community. Let's not do that.
Have major differences been observed in noise between indoor and outdoor pickleball courts?
Well, I think when you play indoors, you get all the echoes off the ceiling and off the walls and everything. So, yeah, that's the players don't like it. You know, you want to be able to hear what you want to have the conversation. Part of the joy in the game is the conversation and the camaraderie that you have talking, and if it's loud and the noise gets to be such that it interferes with your speech, then that's not good. And so now in the indoor pickleball world, if you talk to some of the exhibitors upstairs there, they'll sell you padding and so forth that you can put on the walls to quiet down the interiors of the room. So we've got all the people here. We got all the people here at the Acoustical Society to really tackle this problem and come up with solutions. And so I'm excited about the special session we're going to have on Friday morning about pickleball noise. Yeah, there's going to be about 6 different papers covering all aspects of it. It's going to be real interesting.
All right, last question is, have you found yourself playing more pickleball because of your research?
Well, here's the thing. I don't play pickleball. I don't live near the pickleball courts. So I got involved in this because I was on the board of directors and we had to make a decision, and the decision turned out, I would say, not to be a perfect one because we're ending up in a bad place now. So it's for me, it's kind of I've been retired for 19 years, and it's kind of reinvigorated my scientific interest here, because I did spend my career as a patent attorney, and so I dealt with all kinds of engineering problems across all kinds of different technologies. My knowledge of science is about that deep, but it's pretty broad, and so this is kind of fascinating for me as a retired engineer and attorney. It's like the perfect storm of problems to get kind of inadvertently caught up in.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. And that concludes our final press conference for today. If you would like to access recordings of these presentations, they will be made available by the end of this week. And thank you so much for joining us.